But Andy, what will vengeance solve?
If anyone knows the answer to that, Bruce, it's you.
Leave, Andy. Now. Please.
The Caped Crusader, Vengeance, The Knight, The Dark Knight. He is Batman. Debuting on May 1st, 1939 in Detective Comics number 27, Bill Finger and Bob Kane created the Man of the Night, who once only fought mobsters but grew to fight the rogues gallery we know today. The stories were to rival the likes of Superman, the Boy Scout himself. Originally a gun-toting vigilante that almost mimicked the image of the Shadow, another vigilante that was popular in that time nearly a decade prior to the release of the Batman. Other inspirations, or close to, were the likes of Zorro, Dick Tracy, and Mr. Sherlock Holmes himself. With his wealth, he is able to train his body, mind, and soul to pursue justice for the city of Gotham at any cost. This was later changed to show a lighter and more fun side of the character, even revamping his story not to use guns, getting a plucky young sidekick, known as Richard Dick Grayson himself, Robin. Since then, there has been many changes to the Batman mythos over the 80 years and into today. We have seen the character morph, creating levels upon levels on this character. Batman became more than just a man, but a myth, a legend, a symbol, inspiring many over the course of 8 decades, and I'm sure to believe even more afterwards. Let's begin in September of 1992, the birth of Batman, the animated series, helmed by Tim and Dini, with an all-star cast, loosely based on the Burton movies that were released in the 80s. It seems everything around that time period that had an action or violent movie seemed to get an animated movie. Oh, the 80s and the 90s, how I missed thee. But this one was taken a little more seriously. We see a show that was meant for children, a statement that I hate, but it was the best way I could have put it, but I'll describe later how I hate this statement. You know, we'll get to that part. Take on a serious subject and actually explore them with you. The series became an Emmy Award-winning one, pushed the boundaries of animation, and opened the door to the DCAU as we knew it, which unfortunately ended in 2006 with the Justice League Unlimited. We were given characters and backstories that are now used in the comics and seen in other DC media today, and we were blessed with the most iconic voice cast, starring the likes of Mark Hamill, Arlene Sorkin, Paul Williams, Ron Perlman, John Glover, Richard Mole, Adrian Brule, and the man, the myth, the legend himself, Kevin Conroy.
You are a disgrace.
No, you are not my father. I am not a disgrace. I am vengeance. I am the Knight. I am Batman.
This series created a generation of fans that to this day declare this as the definitive Batman series of all time. But today, I would like to talk about one of my favorite Batman movies, one out of the 2 of my top 5 Batman movies. One that I grew up with that was, in my personal opinion, as good as one of the live action. This is the story of Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. Released Christmas of 1993, we go back to the Tim and Dini world. We open up to the city of Gotham, the home of Batman. The night sky reigns over everything as Chucky Saw and his gang talk about their latest plan flooding the streets of Gotham of counterfeit dollars, when Batman dynamically crashes into the room and defeats the mobsters. Not realizing Chucky slipped out, he escapes to the garage where he is confronted by a smoke-like demon that at first looks like Batman. As it approaches, we're introduced to the Phantasm. His eerie presence fills the garage as it moves closer to him. Saul shoots the Batman, emptying his clip until it was chopped in 2. Chucky is able to escape, getting to his car, but the Phantasm is able to catch his car, and after their confrontation, he drives it out of the parking garage, hitting the barrier wall and crashing it into the next parking garage, killing the mobster, only for Batman seeing it at the last moment. He sees the aftermath only to be spotted by some witnesses who point him out. Afterwards, he turns around, noticing the Phantasm giving chase, only for it to disappear. We go to the next day as Arthur, the new DA, goes on a rant against the Batman and what he represents.
Why not? He's a loose cannon, Commissioner. It's not just my opinion. A lot of people, including the police I might add, think Batman's as unstable as the crooks he brings in. What kind of city are we running when we depend on the support of a potential madman?
While this is happening, on a plane flying to Gotham, a mysterious woman flies into town, and she is the key to everything. Not only in Bruce's life, but the birth of Batman. We are now at Bruce's party as he smooses with guests, especially those who are smitten with him.
What about the I word?
The I word?
Engagement.
When a woman splashes a glass of wine in his face.
And just when you're wondering where to register the china, he forgets your phone number. That's Bruce Wayne's style.
A helpful friend or foe, that being Arthur, gives Bruce a handkerchief to wipe himself off as they reminisce and talk about a woman. A specific woman by the name of Andrea Beaumont. Returning the handkerchief, he retreats to his main hall, seeing the photos of his parents, remembering that day, the promise that he was making when he sees a beautiful woman talking to someone, her deceased mother. Their connection was magical, bantering back and forth when they trade names, and she leaves with a darkness rained upon the city, and the dawn of the first night of the vigilante came, fighting the criminals, successfully beating each one of them. He then gives chase to an escaping truck, grabbing onto it. Now, this is another scene that, in my personal opinion, just has amazing cinematography and just outright one of the boundaries being pushed for animation films at the time, especially for the Western animation scene. The following day, after going over the plan with Alfred, Andrea comes to interject after some playful banter and some fighting.
Got a few moves of my own. Miss Hovey's self-defense class for girls. Oh, he laughs. Nice footwork. Can you dance too?
Now we come back from the daydream to his party. While on the other side of town, at the cemetery, Buzz Bronski sees his friend off as he tells him what he really has felt about him.
Chucky. You always were a loser.
Before the dreaded Grim Reaper himself appears, giving chase to him. As he falls in an empty grave where he meets his fate as well, his men find the body and believe to yet again see Batman. Later that night, we see Batman checking out the scene of the crime when he is met by Andrea. Disappearing, she figures out who is the Dark Knight.
Bruce?
Now we follow her to a restaurant. We see Arthur and Andrea talk while Batman stalks from out of view. Remember the time they had their first date, sharing their hopes and dreams for once? Bruce felt like he could be himself, like he didn't have to hide behind the mask. The pain in just being able to be him with someone that he loved. Where we now meet Mr. Beaumont, a man who seems to be great value and integrity until Mr. Sal Valestra injures and interrupts the happy moment. The couple takes their leave when they come upon a biker gang, where Bruce decides to get involved, at first able to get the foothold against them until he's caught off guard. Going home, Bruce talks about the plan, realizing that he couldn't live the double life.
Sir. Master Bruce?
Alfred, I can't. Not now.
What shall I say, sir?
I don't know. I just don't know!
Later, Bruce goes to his parents' graves and realizes that he just wants to be happy, and never realized all this sacrifice will be way more than he expected.
I want to let you down, honest, but it just doesn't hurt so bad anymore. You can understand that, can't you? Look, I can give money to the city, they can hire more cops, let someone else take the risk, but it's different now. Please, I need it to be different now. I know I made a promise, but I didn't see this coming. I didn't count on being happy. Please, tell me that it's okay.
Maybe they already have. Maybe they sent me.
Once again, I keep geeking out about this, but this is one of my favorite scenes. A beautiful scene, and one that I even believe gets so close to something that the live action movies would do, but that's beyond the point. Batman, back on the case, goes to the office of Sal Valestra. We go to another flashback, seeing Bruce ready to propose to Andrea when his calling bursts from the crevasse of the cave and flies into the sky.
What do you say?
Of course I will. I never thought this would happen. I always felt like I'd thrown you a curveball, like you never knew what to do with me because I wasn't in the plan.
You are now. I'm changing the plan.
The next day, he checks the cave out. Alfred stands out there giving Bruce some devastating news.
Britt, what's wrong?
This just arrived, sir.
Left with Dad. Too young. Need time. Forget about me.
Now with nothing to lose, nothing to hold him back, he becomes the avenging angel that he promised his parents. He became Batman. Batman later meets with Andrea, asking her questions about what happened to her father trying to stop the murderers of the former mob. Finally, he asks the question that he got burned for.
You still following your dad's orders?
The way I see it, the only one in this room controlled by his parents is you.
Now we follow the Phantasm to the home of Salvatore Valestra. Entering his home, saying his famous quote as he pulls down the paper, seeing the deceased body of Valestra.
Your angel of death awakes.
Before, Sal had met with the Clown Prince of Crime, and after a pretty bad reaction to Sal's pretty explosive reaction to things, he was given some of the old laughing gas, killing the former mobster. A bomb strapped to his chest, it explodes as the Phantasm escapes and is pursued by Batman from him to escape once again, leaving Batman to be chased by the GCPD. And another one of my personal favorite shots. This is just amazing animated scene all the way around. I'm so sorry that I keep geeking out about this, but honestly, they did pull out all the stops for this movie. He's able to escape barely after being blown up by a hydrogen tank. Using his cowl as a distraction, he had to hurry and leave the construction site, being saved by Andrea. Now back at Wayne Manor, she explains what happened before she left with her father to escape the mob.
Finally, he had enough to pay them back, or so he thought. It would never be enough. They wanted interest compounded in blood. He had to find another way.
The man in the costume. Your father?
He said he'd get them, somehow. When I heard about Chucky Saul, well, I had to come back. To find him. To stop him. I'm sorry, Bruce. That's twice now I've come into your life and screwed it up.
Bruce is happy to see the woman he once nearly gave it all up for, back in his life. Even now, the one that is making him question whether to give up his war on crime and settle down after the happiness, after the high of it all. He looked over the picture that he took from the office of Sal and noticed something suspicious. Using a red pencil, he then realized there was something he missed, a clue linking back to the Joker. After Arthur deals with the Clown Prince of Crime, poisoning the DA, leaving him in the hospital, Batman makes the connections between Arthur and the mobsters as he questions the now gassed DA. Finally, he admits his sins.
Beaumont needed me to help him and his kid get out of town. He kept in touch.
When was the last time you spoke to him?
Years ago, my first election campaign, I was running out of money and asked Beaumont for help. He said no.
So you sold him to the mob.
I was broke, desperate. They said all they wanted was their money back.
After the realization, Batman goes to Andrea's place one last time before getting a call from the Joker, opening up the twist that Andrea Beaumont, the woman that Bruce was willing to give up being Batman for, the one that spoke to him, to his soul, was indeed the Phantasm, and was hunting down and murdering each one of her father's killers. Joker, before donning the makeup, was her father's murderer. And we come to the head at the park where Bruce and Andrea have their date, the worlds of the future. What's so beautiful about this is that the park reflects of two different versions of the future. A past version where the future seems so bright, it seems so beautiful, and now it's run down, dark, twisted, leading to the climax of this movie as they all come together and clash in the wild ride leading to the end, with Andrea now with the Joker in hand disappearing as the music part explodes and it's destroyed. Batman forcibly escapes through a sewer pipe, watching the place fall apart. Bruce is back in the cave as Alfred and him have a heart-to-heart.
I think she wanted to be saved, sir. Vengeance blackens the soul, Bruce. I always feared you would become that which you fought against. You walk the edge of that abyss every night. But you haven't fallen in, and I thank heaven for that. But Andrea fell into that pit years ago. And no one, not even you, could have pulled her back.
After discovering the locket that was placed in the cave, we close with each one of them going on their own paths. Gotham to go her own way.
Do you want to be alone?
I am.
Bruce, Batman, looks over this city and now is officially her guardian. Mask of the Phantasm is one of those movies that I feel more people should use as a template on animated movies today. If I do say so in my unbiased opinion, Batman the Animated Series and this movie shuts down that tiresome age-old argument that it is a kid's show. It doesn't have to be deep. Tim and Dini proved that notion many times wrong over throughout the DCAU's history, but most of all, this movie tackles something that is in our everyday lives. We have choices. We have paths to those choices as well. But sometimes in our lives, something that hits us the hardest, that hits us the most, will have us change that path for the worse. Andrea is the reflection of Bruce, and instead of taking the path to choose to do the right thing, she went down the dark road of revenge and took the law into her own hands, going just beyond arresting them and making herself the executioner as well. Letting the want for revenge govern her life, because when she had that one bad day, she took it down our dark road. We have choices in our everyday life, from the people that we meet, the food that we eat, the clothes that we wear. We make those choices and understand that those things do lead to eventual consequences. But the question comes down to, how would you deal with one bad day? Bruce and Andrea show this perfectly, as they both represent a tragic past that led them each to one of their decisions, one of the hero and the other of the villain. When you don't use what hurts you to make you better, you sit there, wallow in it, and use it as a force for evil, destroying anything and everything that is to stand in your way. Andrea was that in her character, someone who wanted to fall in love, but it was taken away from her bit by bit, till she had felt she had nothing. And eventually, donning the Phantasm suit, we see her murderous rage unfold in Gotham. While Bruce, after everything he has been through, the heartache, the pain, the loss, the grief, can find a way to use that power to do the right thing, not only for himself, but for the people of Gotham, because he wants no one to suffer the way he did those many years ago. The tragedy of these two is that their choices that could have led to a happy life were not able to be due to the choices that people made for them that eventually left them spiraling to be the people they are today. People today don't realize that every choice that they make has consequences. They do have an impact on others, and whatever that may be, it could lead them into different directions. We could either be more positive within the world we live in because of our choices, or more negative, more independent or dependent. The choices we make in our everyday lives is what shapes us, guides us, and leads us to where we are today and what we could be in our futures. The fact of the matter is that sometimes we have those bad days, but the question is, do we from that point on blame everyone, or we learn that we can grow and do better? We are in a society today that is filled with more depressed individuals than we have ever seen before. We latch onto the idea that since one bad thing happened to you from this type of people, then every person is like this. And it leads us into a deep rabbit hole that sometimes becomes too hard to pull that person out of their way of thinking. Just because we are hurt by that type of person or persons doesn't mean that we can lump everyone under the same title. It is easy to do so, very easy, especially when you feel it is of every type of that person that you run into. I know this because I too have fallen down that dark road. After feeling that every time I have spoken to a certain type of people that it just must be them. Conveying how I feel and how I wish to be treated, nothing came of it but grief and being used against me. But I will tell you this. It isn't further from the truth when good people came into my life and showed me that it's not the majority, but that minority that will give them a bad rep, make your life miserable, and hurt you without a care. It is easy for us to process those bad moments and take vengeance against anyone that differs in our opinion, may it be men, women, people of color, heterosexuals, or homosexual people. We have to sometimes take a step back and realize after that one bad day that those people that have hurt us, it isn't right to try to enact our own vengeance, not realizing the ripple effect that is caused by those choices that we have made. Even in the regards of Batman himself, where his pursuit of justice eventually leads him to be a lonely man. Why talk about the choices that we make for today's video? Heck, why did I choose this movie over, say, something like The Killing Joke, where the premise is just one bad day? Because this is something more powerful. We have all been in love in our lives. We've either had that love ripped away from us, or choices eventually led to the downfall of that relationship. A tale that we see far too often nowadays. This fits all too well with our two main characters, Bruce and Andrea. A tragic couple beholden to what they felt what was right, but it was tragically taken away from them. That we just can't live in the negative, that we must do better for ourselves, not only for us, but for others as well. Being a beacon of positive energy is the best we can do, especially in times when the world wants us to be so negative. When you're just choosing to be negative, nothing will go right for you. Everyone will eventually distance themselves from you, and you will have people try to avoid you. We have the strength to be better versions of ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be in the top percentile, but a little choice like doing something that makes you feel more fulfilled in a positive way can shape your life for the better. Don't hold on to the things that will make you bitter and choose to hate a certain demographic of people. Our choices have to remember that we are all not the same. We are all different in our own right, and as long as you remember that lesson alone, even when those toughest of battles come your way, you will not give in and stand tall as the Dark Knight does for all of us. Thanks for watching.